Welcome into DC On Screen episode 407. This is our weekly DCEU news. I am your host, David C. Robertson. This, my robust co-host, Jason Goss.
Hello.
I don't know why you're so robust. I don't know why I say that.
I have a presence.
You do.
It takes place within the space that I am occupying.
Right.
Importantly, not without that space.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say I have a presence, I mean that I exist. Nothing more.
Okay. I was just thinking about an Olive Garden commercial.
Yeah, that has more presence than I do. You know, when you lay things out, you know, on a celebrity type scale. Yeah, Olive Garden, way more important than I am. Did I say Gordon?
Olive Gordon.
Olive Gordon is way more important than I am.
It's Barbara Gordon's little sister.
Yeah. She's half Italian. This is a fun start.
Yeah. So there's I don't know, not a huge amount of stuff to talk about this week with DCEU news, but I feel like it's robust news.
Sure. Everyone's kind of laying in wait for San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the case. But we're gonna break away from the norm and hit up something Geoff Johns said to Humberto Gonzalez at Heroic Hollywood. And Humberto is saying that he met with Geoff Johns a month ago at the DC Museum Post Wonder Woman screening. And they were talking about the DCEU going forward. And Johns said it was going to have open optimism as a compass. Now, Johns has also been quoted as saying, "Get to the essence of the character and make the movies fun. Just make sure that the characters are the characters with heart, humor, hope, heroics, and optimism at the base." So that's echoing things he's already said. He's been saying for months, but it's making the rounds again because it's been a slow news week.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And following it up, Kevin Feige, head of Marvel Studios, was talking to Allociné. I guess that's how you say that. But and they asked about the they said, "We have a lot of questions about the DC Universe. How do you see them?" And Kevin Feige says, "I buy a ticket and I watch the movie."
Well done, buddy.
And they asked about the rivalry, and he says, "Well, there's not really a rivalry. The rivalry is much more amongst the press, I think. Geoff Johns is a very good friend of mine. We grew up together in the business and recently celebrated Richard Donner, who we both used to work for." We talked about that last week.
Sure.
And he says, "So I applaud all the success he has. I really just look at it as a fan. When the movies perform well and are well received, it's good for us, which is why I'm always rooting for them."
That sounds more accurate.
I am going to keep talking about these stories as they happen because I'm tired of being called not a fan for liking Marvel. That's just the truth of it.
Yeah.
That, and I want us all to come together. That's the big thing.
No, what do they call it? Pop tent movies, or is it a? I want to say
pop tent movie.
No, what's the term? Tentpole movies.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I wanted.
I think what you were describing was a very different kind of movie.
Very different kind of movie. There's
Wink,
significantly
wink.
more
Nudge,
letters than the single X for the one I was describing.
More spandex, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. They
at least for a minute.
Yeah, there's more latex than... Anyway, all in all, all these movies have to do well, or the studio execs will stop buying them. Mm-hmm.
I even discussed that as well, about how thrilled he was that Wonder Woman is a huge success, and how it's putting to bed all of the beliefs of previous years. He was like, there was a string of female-led superhero movies years ago that weren't very good, but the studio executives just thought that meant that women couldn't carry a movie like this, and he was glad to see Wonder Woman was kind of killing that and destroying that mentality.
Yeah, everyone points to Elektra.
Yeah, of course, he was like, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp coming up.
Yeah. And
we also have, Captain Marvel.
Yep.
So he was pimping his wares as well, but isn't that what it's all about? Anywho.
I mean, yeah. But we've stressed this several times. We're all on the same side here.
Absolutely. By the way, and I'm going to toot my own horn because I enjoyed my own response to this. I saw there was an article where it was like, John Lynda said that he's bored shitless by Marvel movies. And I retweeted the article and said, now I guess he knows how I felt watching Blues Brothers 2000. Oh, John. I still love and respect you for Trading Places and, of course, the Blues Brothers.
Sure.
But come on, man. Come on. Anyway.
There's a thing called Heyday. You may be past that one. The calendar may have turned.
Maybe. Or maybe he should just stop working with Dan Aykroyd.
That may have turned from an idea to a suggestion to a maxim.
He's got it written above his computer at home.
Stop working with DA.
Now, I did mention that it's been a slow news week, and it seems like whenever we have less than 15 pages of news, that week it has been reported that Supergirl and Brainiac are going to be part of Man of Steel 2. Yeah. We got that again this week. It was debunked by Humberto Gonzalez. He also debunked the rest of the 4chan leak. The whole thread, man. He said everything else. He said it's not true. So is everything else in this thread. And I mean, we're talking about just a whole bunch of crap. Stuff with Wonder Woman, like, oh, Wonder Woman 2 is going to have Cheetah and Kiersey. Well, I mean, you literally named like the only other two Wonder Woman villains that most people know.
Yeah, seriously.
So, I mean, that's not a scoop. And there are a bunch of other things like Superman and Shazam, and I'm not getting into it because it's pretty much debunked at this point until further notice. It's 4chan. If someone speaks in the declarative form on 4chan, just question it immediately. Mm-hmm. So, Zack Snyder confirmed a pretty fun fan theory about Batman v Superman. The Kingslayer, a user on Vero, wrote, "Love this scene, and the Zimmer score sums up what BVS is really about. Clark just trying to do the right thing, but everyone just refers to him as some higher power, as they say, and the Day of the Dead partakers put their hands on him, almost as if he's a god they could finally meet. Plus the symbolism of Clark being dragged down by the people who died during him and Zod's fight, symbolized by people dressed in skeletons honoring the dead. Maybe that's just my overthinking. Still, super duper scene." Zack Snyder responded and said, No, that's right.
Nope, nailed it. Good work, buddy. There were so many like messianic overtones in that movie, and then even in BVS here and there. Yeah, of course that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wonder Woman has the best third weekend for a DCEU movie. That's the thing that's happened. I didn't, because I'm a terrible host and I didn't pay attention to what I was not doing. I am going to now go over to Box Office Mojo and see what the numbers are on that right now.
I'll be happy to fill time by just saying that I've enjoyed reporting every week that Wonder Woman is doing well.
Mm-hmm. And like I saw a lot of clickbait articles that was Cars 3 upends Wonder Woman, outdistances Wonder Woman. No, DCEU is over.
No.
Nope. It's only had like a 30% drop from last weekend, which is really super good.
Yeah.
It's the third weekend, so I mean it's summertime. We knew this was going to happen. We knew this was coming. Worldwide has made 573 million. 573.5 million.
That's really good for 3 weeks in, man.
Yeah, so domestic total as of June 18th is 275 million and counting.
Yeah.
I mean, so I wouldn't worry about it. It's, don't fall into the clickbait trap. It's doing really good.
No,
really well.
I think I may be contributing more. I've got a couple people in my life that haven't seen it yet. May just drag them to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, Sam Otten over the JLU podcast on Twitter posted a chart. I sent it to you showing, like, Wonder Woman's rise compared to all the other solo...
The origin stories?
Origin films, yeah. And she's catching up quick.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what I saw in that chart was out of all the other properties, and Deadpool being some weird outlier that kind of kills everything, because that film just destroyed everything that Marvel and DC were up to.
It did.
And deservedly so. It was a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
But looking at that chart, I mean, she is just climbing up on his back. Like, it almost begs for Ryan Reynolds to get in costume and mention it.
You know what? I actually just you saying she is getting up on his back. I just saw that in my head. Don't you want
a little quick, like a minute and 15 YouTube reference? And you know damn well it'd be funny because Ryan Reynolds would obviously make that good.
I mean, that would be fine. It'd be all right. What I want is Wonder Woman and Deadpool in a movie together.
Oh, of course. But that's a formula that's so universal. Any chunky character, we'll call it, something that's got some meat behind it, plus Deadpool, is a film waiting to happen. Just is.
Yeah.
Plus this version of Deadpool, I should say.
Yeah, I'd just watch it happily.
Yep.
All right, so Patty Jenkins was talking to in an interview with Business Insider, and she was answering the question about whether or not the negative criticism toward the tone of BVS and Suicide Squad had any effect on Wonder Woman if they, mandated that she make a brighter movie. She said it could have, and it certainly does in the industry. In our case, we were incredibly fortunate. DC didn't ever give me a mandate of tone, and I pitched to Warner Brothers and DC 10 years ago. I want to make the origin movie a la the first Superman with Christopher Reeve. I want to go back and try to do a grand piece of cinema for her. So I had been very strong about being excited about that idea, and they really supported it from the start. So we were already just different. It's hard to apply anything about one movie to another. So luckily, no, we just carried on. We were like far away in England making this movie, so we just trudged on. I said I wanted to make the origin story, and I wanted to make it a great love story and have humor and all of those things as well. As far as the logistics of what period that story takes place in or who the villain is changed plenty, but that's not the point. To me, the spirit of it has remained, and also it feels to me like the right spirit to do Wonder Woman in anyway. Of course, there could be other great versions, but she's just a clean, grand superhero that I really liked the idea of her eliciting that kind of treatment in a big, classic movie.
Yeah.
And
you gotta love
Jared Leto. Yeah. Jared Leto enjoyed it as well. On Instagram, he shared a picture of his whole 30 Seconds to Mars crew, and they were all like doing like the cross-armed Wonder Woman bracelet stance. And he said, took the entire 30 Seconds to Mars crew to Wonder Woman last night. Loved the movie. Loved the actors. Loved everything about it. And Gal Gadot was perfect. Great work. Congrats. And thanks to Team Wonder Woman and Warner Brothers Entertainment. P.S. When I was a kid, I used to watch the OG TV series religiously.
Nice. Yeah, they're touring right now with Muse, actually.
That's odd.
Well, not, I don't know, a little bit. But they were in Atlanta last week, and I deeply regret not being able to see that.
Really?
Yeah, I love Muse so much.
There we go. There we are.
Yeah. 30 Seconds to Mars has a couple of songs that I could get sentimental with, I guess, from back in high school. But any excuse to go see Muse. Actually, okay. I still remember, I got to see Muse for a second in Atlanta for like 4 songs. They were playing a side stage for The Cure. It was a festival where like we stayed for The Cure, but I was so young I didn't understand that was cool.
Yeah.
Like I didn't understand that was actually something I should probably stick around and enjoy. So I got to see Muse do like a couple of songs on a side stage in Atlanta. And then a buddy of mine went back to see him in, I forget which venue in Atlanta. But it was this infamous incident where the lead singer and guitarist got so into his, stage persona or his performance that he busted his upper lip with his guitar and like tried to sing a few more bars, I suppose. And finally had to admit through like all the blood pouring off his top lip, I think there's something wrong with my face or something like that. And was taken off stage and they didn't get to come back for that tour. It was a sad ending to what was otherwise probably going to be a good show. Well, there's my Muse outtake.
Muse musings.
Yep, Muse musings. Good band though, seriously. Love those guys.
All right. I like one song I've heard of theirs.
There are a plenty.
And I don't remember what it's called.
I really have no idea how they hooked up with 30 Seconds to Mars. It's not the same style of music at all.
Yeah. It's weird.
I don't know. Like, if it was like Deftones in 30 Seconds to Mars, I'd be like, okay, this makes sense. Yeah, okay, yeah. Those guys at the Tabernacle, got it. Good. I don't know what to do. All right, go ahead.
So, Ewan Bremner, who played Charlie the Sniper in Wonder Woman, was talking about the photograph, the photograph from BVS.
Mm-hmm.
And, how difficult it was to recreate it, essentially. He said, because the photograph was shot about a year and a half before Wonder Woman was started shooting, and it was shot with half-built sets. He says it meant that when we eventually got around to shooting the scene that the photograph is from, we had to really painstakingly recreate it because we took the photo against a half-built set in a way sets were still being built at that point. So by the time we came around to filming that scene, probably about 5 months later, the sets were much more developed. So we had to find a way to recreate the exact same image after a year and a half had gone by.
That's rough.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, they did well enough that it didn't even occur to me that was a different image.
I did. I noticed.
I had no chance. I had enough recollection of the previous image to, I was lost.
I noticed some differences. I noticed it didn't look quite right, but it's sort of like, when we come back to Star Trek 4 and the Klingon ship interior looks completely different than it did in Star Trek 3. And you're like, I don't know. Let's just ignore it.
Yeah, so many things go down that way.
Or, they also, beginning of Star Trek 3, you see the ship coming in, and you're like, those burn marks on the hull don't match the burn marks that should have been there from Wrath of Khan. Whatever.
Years-long continuity errors aside, they did a pretty good job recreating it.
Mm-hmm, they did.
I say that also having just admitted that I didn't even notice.
Right.
I don't know if that's evidence for or against, or it's either evidence for their prowess or against my diligence. I'm not sure. Maybe a mixture.
The old prowess suicide. I don't know what I'm talking about. Lynda Carter presented the Wonder Woman script to the U.S. Library of Congress, specifically to Dr. Carla Hayden, as a gift from director Patty Jenkins. There was a lot of talking, a lot of Lynda Carter reading something Patty Jenkins had written, and it was pretty boring. So, moving on. I'm sorry. It's cool that it happened, but I wasn't going to read all that.
I didn't look into it either, but still cool that it's admitted.
I watched the video, but I felt like they were both acting kind of like, childishly fake, like, oh man, here's a big thing, this is so cool, and I was just not into it.
Yeah, I didn't get that far. I saw that headline at some point and thought, oh cool, all right, yeah, that makes sense, and then moved on with my life.
So here's some big news, and caused a little bit of a controversy. Danny Elfman is going to be composing Justice League.
I'm waiting for the point where that's controversial.
It's controversial because, I myself, I stepped onto Twitter, and, basically, here's my point. I love Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman is a musical god to me, has been since 89's Batman. I have CDs of his, I have soundtracks. I don't own some of these movies, but because Danny Elfman did it, I have it.
Sure.
And of course, he didn't just do Batman and Batman Returns. He contributed to pieces of Batman the Animated Series. Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Oingo Boingo, if you want to go that far. Beetlejuice, Nightmare Before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I have several of his compositions floating in my head any given time.
Yeah.
In that way, yes, I am very excited for him being on Justice League. However, I am somewhat concerned as Zack Snyder had hired Junkie XL to be the composer for the movie. And it's not like Junkie XL hasn't done anything. He's got Mad Max Fury Road, he's got Deadpool, and not to mention pieces of Man of Steel and, sharing the credit with Hans Zimmer on Batman v Superman. I'm
pretty sure that's his iconic riff on Wonder Woman.
I don't Was it? I don't even know.
Him and Hans Zimmer wrote it, but it just feels like that the riff that comes on every time you see her in full costume. I feel like that's his.
Yeah. It might be. I wanted to say no, but I might be wrong. Anyway,
I'm just guessing.
I felt like it was, I know he contributed heavily to the badass version of Come Together for the last trailer that we got.
I would like the full version of that.
Mm-hmm. But he doesn't seem happy about the situation. He says, as my mentor Hans Zimmer told me, you haven't made it in Hollywood as a composer until you get replaced on a project. So I guess I finally graduated this week. It pains me to leave the project, but a big thanks to Zack for asking me to part of his vision, and I wish Danny, Joss, and Warner Brothers all the best with Justice League. And of course, Elfman has some familiarity with Whedon on Age of Ultron. Now, I want to believe that people just weren't happy with what Junkie XL was doing for the tone of the film, and that they decided to replace him. And it's not like, I was kind of thinking for a while, like I was talking to Eli Oppelders of Stealing the Remote, one of our listeners, lovely guy, and we were both concerned about this, and kind of looking at the timeline of it. But composers get like, Hans Zimmer, for instance, gets like something like oh gosh, I can't even remember. I looked it up and I was going to put it in the podcast. He gets way less than 5 months to compose. Then again, Junkie XL isn't Hans Zimmer. So
no, and I don't know if he has the chops to do 32-piece orchestras in a month and a half for an hour and a half worth of that's several suites tied together.
Yeah. And apparently Junkie XL has been working on this the whole time. But look, I mean, we can't really glean anything from the time frame anyway.
Now, the time frame, if anything, indicates that they've started heavily into post-production. Mm-hmm. That the first thing that comes to mind to me is that they heard some of the kind of first draft stuff out of Junkie XL and thought, well, it's not exactly the tone, and Danny Elfman's on board, and we do like his tone slightly better. And the major thing for me would be that Danny Elfman obviously can do this. He's done it dozens of times at this point in his career.
Actually, here's the answer I was looking for. I literally put into Google, how long does it take to compose a film score? Google brought up Hans Zimmer from Korra. He gets 6 to 12 weeks to write 2 hours of music. So
that's rough.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
It's not rough if you're talking about like iconic albums of some kind. I mean, God, I don't know how many albums have been written in 2 weeks in a cabin in the middle of the woods. It's not that. We're talking orchestras.
Yeah. But it makes me what this calls into question for me to some degree. And I'm not screaming that the sky is falling necessarily. I'm not Chicken Little over here, but I will say that I have a massive sky-shaped bump on my head. Because this feels like Whedon excising more Zack Snyder choices. And maybe they just I would like to believe that they just heard XL's score and didn't care for it and just thought it's just not going to work. But for me, it kind of, at the time, at least, more so, I've chilled out a little bit, but, on Twitter, I was like, oh man, this could, like, Whedon's putting more than just the tip in, guys. This is getting scary.
I don't know. I mean,
which is, is fine, because I love Joss Whedon, and I've always trusted him. I trust Geoff Johns and Joss Whedon. And Danny Elfman, more than anyone that's been involved in the DCEU so far.
I think that's the major point, though. I don't necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily Joss Whedon, getting up in that. Mm-hmm. It's probably more him getting in and maybe being the last person out of the studio execs that agreed, hey, maybe we should give this somebody more experienced. This is the kind of movie, I'm going to use the word tentpole now, deliberately instead of searching for it. This is a tentpole movie that needs to work. And maybe we don't leave it with a guy who, obviously is talented, but hasn't done this so many times. Danny Elfman has done this successfully and many times. Mm-hmm. And him and Whedon have worked together, like you said. Maybe it's just one of the situations where they said, look, we love what you've started. And I'll bet you that Elfman is listening to his track. Because you got to remember, when Junkie XL records them, they're no longer his. Uh-huh. He did it for the studio. So he's probably listening to what he had started. And I'll bet some of it gets incorporated heavily. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's replaced. He said he made the statement replaced.
But that happens all the time.
But, you know, it's one of those things where, I mean, when I was talking to Eli, I was like, well, look, you know, I absolutely fully adore Edgar Wright. But Marvel had bought so much credibility by that point. I said, well, Marvel knows best.
Yeah.
When they replaced Edgar Wright, I was like, it pains me, but Marvel knows best.
There's probably a reason.
They've got some damn fine names that's doing the replacing, and I know that the party line that's being towed here is that Zack Snyder chose Joss Whedon to come in and finish this thing. But I feel like that, even with Elfman being, or with Junkie being replaced, I feel like maybe that's even called into question to some degree.
No, that all still seems to make some sense. Like, if Zack Snyder said, look, I'd like to hand the reins over here, he probably didn't say I'd like to hand the reins over, but only to this extent. I mean, come on, Snyder's still dealing with some serious stuff right now. He doesn't give a shit who's composing this movie right now. Come on, he doesn't give a damn. And he shouldn't. He needs to be dealing with what he's dealing with.
Well, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
He might in retrospect, but right now, I doubt it.
Yeah, it's always...
I doubt very seriously that when he handed over the reins to someone that I think he respected as much as Joss Whedon.
Sure.
I think when he handed over the reins, he wasn't doing so with stipulations.
Well, no.
I think he kind of said, hey, look, I got it this far. There's some stuff to be done. I got to go do some stuff, and walked away. Mm-hmm. And Warner Brothers, to their credit, finally, understands who they're dealing with. And it's Joss Dan Whedon. He can handle this. He can punch up a film with the best of them.
I mean, I will say, though, I mean, I'm not saying that, and some people, like, I was talking to Travis Langston on Twitter, and he linked me to basically someone trolling a fake troll of Joss Whedon, and I didn't even realize that at the time. But apparently neither did Geoff Johns, who responded to him. This fake Joss Whedon said, what was it? Thank you, Geoff Johns, for asking me to reshoot the entire Justice League movie. I'm honored. And then Geoff Johns said, did I mention we're going to put Spider-Man and Scooby-Doo in it? And my response is basically like, oh yeah, bigwigs throwing sarcasm out to the people who are concerned, whatever. That doesn't mean that it's not, right. That just, that's classic old tactic, but to make the detractors look stupid. But I'm not detracting. I really love Joss Whedon. I was looking forward to the Zack Snyder vision, and I hope that the extensive reshoots, we've been hearing all these rumors about the extensive, significant reshoots and everything.
Yeah. I mean, we know they're reshoots. We don't know the extent.
Mm-hmm. They're filming in London right now.
Yeah.
And yes, there were set peak leaks. We're not leaks, set pick leaks, and we're not talking about that necessarily. But I'll be happy to talk to you about it on Twitter, or email or something. But I want the best. I'm rooting for this movie hard. I really am. If Danny Elfman is what needs to happen, Danny Elfman is what needs to happen. I'm a little worried about the Suicide Squad syndrome is all I'm saying, because we got all of those leaks. And, we very much liked Batman v Superman. We wanted Suicide Squad to be like the best thing ever in the world. And I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the best thing ever in the world.
Yeah.
By any stretch. But we had all of those rumors and reports of like, oh man, there are like 3 or 4 different cuts of the film, and it's going to be a mess and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's just, clickbait and detractors being assholes.
Yeah, but...
And then they were all right.
No, they weren't, though. I mean, Wonder Woman had the same set of rumors.
She had one rumor that was so unsubstantiated. I felt like if you actually go back and look, there was way less. Like, they were already gearing up to like slam Justice League with Wonder Woman. Like, look at how great this is. You better step it up, Zack.
No, they were doing that, but there were also so
many
rumors of reshoots, and it had the same kind of detraction that Suicide Squad had in the month or two before. The thing that Suicide Squad had that ended up being, unfortunately, I don't know, true-ish. I'm still going to hedge my bet there. But the thing that actually stuck was a couple days before, once the press was off the leash, then some bad reviews came out. And it was like 72 hours before the film actually came out. I mean, it was really short-lived. Like, Wonder Woman had a lot of, oh my God, this film's a mess. Oh my God, this film has reshoots. Oh my God. Every film has that to some extent. Now, look, I understand. What you're saying is like it's only came from one source, but it comes from a ton of sources as far as jackasses talking. It was a story that was out there, but for Wonder Woman, it ended up being not true. The story, I mean, I don't know. The film, to me, kind of objectively holds together pretty well. I don't think.
Well, what I mean by one source is, Wonder Woman had one person on, like, I think it was the Schmoes Know podcast or whatever say it's a mess, and then they didn't have anything to really back it up.
There were the anonymous resources.
Yeah. Suicide Squad though had more and more just happening from different places, and it was like, okay, there was like Ayer's cut, and then there was a studio cut, and then there was like, oh, the audiences didn't like the abuse angle, so that had to be changed, and
a lot of that ended
not to
up
mention
being...
the fact that he had to write it in 6 weeks,
Oh yeah. This time around, apparently, he's got a lot more time to actually write it. Which, whoever it is, I don't know who was actually in charge of writing this first draft, but
of what?
Suicide Squad's sequel.
Oh, I don't know. They haven't really said a whole lot about it.
Presumably, they have more than 6 weeks, though.
Presumably, yeah, but I think David Ayer's doing, from what I understand, he's doing Gotham City Sirens, so he may have moved on. Yeah. Right the hell on.
We haven't. I don't.
From what they've said,
I don't think at any point have we. David Ayer is not officially signed on for Suicide Squad's return in any capacity. So
no,
he
is signed on for Gotham City Sirens, to my understanding.
Yeah. Well, he's attached to it at least.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he said he was going to direct it.
You know how these things
go. What that's worth. For whatever that's worth. I mean, Doug Liman said he was going to direct Justice League Dark, but we see where that got us.
Yeah. You almost want to see like a contract signed in blood released by Variety before you actually believe that.
Yeah.
We have photocopies of the blood of David Ayer.
Nicholson. I want Nicholson in Joker garb holding up a feather going, it is legitimate.
Right.
I saw it. I was there. I saw it all. Reached up his dead hand,
and then
signed it in his own blood. Yes.
No, my only point though is like all of these films get some amount of shit before they start, and a lot of the Suicide Squad stuff retroactively ended up making some sense, but they all get some amount of just anonymous kind of free for all bullshit that starts out. The thing that started worrying us about Suicide Squad was that little period right before when some of the reviews came out and said, this thing's a mess, and it corroborated previous things. And then, I mean, we went and saw it, especially when you added this is the thing I hate having to say over and over again. When you see the ultimate cut before WB fucked with it, the movie makes sense. And then when you see the cut before, you're like, well, it's entertaining, and I can make sense of it. But then you actually see the extra 13 or 30 minutes, depending on which movie you're watching, and it's a cogent film.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times we've stressed the point of for WB of just please release the damn film.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, I mean, that's apparently going to be the case with Wonder Woman.
That's my greatest hope is that Patty Jenkins maybe convince them, hey, just make the movie, put it out there.
Yeah, but look, I'm really torn. I really am. I'm torn on this Justice League movie. I feel like in some ways I've seen what Joss Whedon can do because I've watched his Avengers movies and every damn thing he's done. I mean, honestly,
it's you've probably watched 90+% of everything Joss Whedon's ever done.
But I would like to see that Snyder vision. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. And the thing is, we probably won't get much of an idea of what we didn't, of what he didn't do.
It would be weird if you got in there and saw something and went, oh, that's Whedon. I mean, principal photography is called that for a reason. It's going to look like a Snyder film. It's going to feel like a Snyder film.
Now, he's writing scenes, so I might actually be able to do that.
Some of the dialogue might feel pretty Whedon-y. No doubt.
I might be like, that didn't sound clunky and Goyerish.
It might have that kind of, I don't know, that charming brevity that we're so used to with Whedon.
Mm-hmm. But look,
it's going to look like a Snyder film.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It might be the best of both worlds. I don't know. I'm hoping for the best. I'm pulling for it. And
I mean, minimally,
that doesn't mean I'm not concerned.
Minimally, Whedon would know that if you put in another person's vision in the middle of a film, it would be weird. So he's a good enough director that he's gonna, I don't know, stay true to stay true to the majority of the film's presence.
And look,
he's not just gonna interject himself and make it look weird and awkward. He's gonna. I have 100% faith that he's gonna make it make sense.
And I joke about the writing, but Whedon is a freaking vetted script doctor. He knows how to change his tone into somebody else's.
Yeah.
So I think, maybe the film does need to be reworked a little bit to have that lighter tone like Geoff Johns is wanting, and maybe it needs that. Maybe Zack understands that and says, "Look, I got to go do this thing anyway. You guys just take it from here." I don't know. I don't know what all happened behind the scenes, but I am rooting for it at the very least.
Yeah.
Kiersey Clemons has confirmed she'll be in Justice League. We got a confirmation a long time ago that she was going to have a cameo, but she told Modelista magazine, "This November I'm making a cameo in Justice League as Iris West. It is the first time that you meet her before we get to see her in the Flash with Ezra Miller. It was my first time doing something so extravagant like that. We filmed in London, and that's one of my favorite places." Coincidentally or not, Armie Hammer posted a picture on Instagram of himself flying to London.
See where that goes. I mean, he may just be masterfully trolling at this point.
I'd bet you $20 he shows up as the Green Lantern.
I wouldn't even bet against you. I would also be willing to bet my standard $1 that he is so caught up in that set of media that he's just fucking with us by now. Like the most telling thing so far is when he said, "Hey, this is all great, but my manager hasn't called me about shit."
Yeah, but that's exactly what he would say if it was a secret,
Well, sure.
super secret cameo,
Sure.
That's exactly what he would say.
And
because last week I was sort of like,
if that's what happens, but
when he was like, when we reported last week that he was like, "Oh, my manager hasn't called me" or whatever, I went, "All right." But deep in my head, I went, "Use a damn lie, Armie Hammer."
Same time though, it seems weird to lie about. Oh, I have received no official representation, context from my representation. It feels weird to do something so formal, or even as informally as he did it, and then the next week be like, "I'm on my way to London." Wink, wink. You gotta admit, those are kind of weird.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, but like I've said before, all of these people are liars. That's what gives me pause with the Justice League movie. That's what gives me pause with Armie Hammer flying to London.
I mean, you're not wrong. This is a city of professional liars.
They're actors.
Yeah, it's their job.
And the producers are like, "Nope, with the internet, we got to keep a tight lid."
Right.
And none of that before was to diminish at all any of the tragic family circumstances that Zack Snyder has to deal with. Period.
Yeah. No, not at all. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Anything that's happening is in the wake of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. JoinTheLeague.dccomics.com put out pictures of Justice League costumes with mannequins of questionable quality wearing them. So if you want to go see, and look, you can't even click on them to get a blown up version of the costumes. Mm-hmm. But if you just want to go check out the costumes, you can go there. I'll put up a link in the show notes. That's the thing that's happening.
Sure.
Matt Reeves was talking about his personal approach to Batman. He says, "Look, I'm just starting Batman because literally War for the Planet of the Apes, as I just said, we finished about a week ago, and now we're publicizing it. So we haven't even begun on Batman. For me, what's always important is to try and find a personal way in that way, I do feel like I relate to actors. It's about understanding emotionally the way something is. I see this parallel between Caesar and Batman, really, which is this idea of these characters who are grappling with their own struggle and trying to do the right thing in an imperfect world. And so I do really relate to it, to that kind of idea. Sounds fine. Personal approach. I haven't seen those 8 movies, so I don't know about Caesar and Batman being one the same or paralleled.
Don't know about that. But trying to do the right thing in an imperfect world is a phrase I would love to attach to any treatment for Batman.
Yeah, that's fine. And some of his, some of Matt Reeves' visuals, I still haven't sat down and really watched anything he's done.
Neither have I.
But I've watched some trailers. Yeah.
That's all I've got.
I love you, Jason.
We're on the same unwritten page here.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to some random fodder here. How the Lego Batman should have ended. It was fun. Did you see this thing? I sent it to you.
You sent me the link. I didn't get to watch it before we started. Sorry.
Okay. Well, basically, it's like they do the scene at the end, and they just kind of start it where they're like all about to click together to bring the two sides of Gotham back together, and then like the Justice League just shows up and steals Batman's spotlight.
Just
and Superman just uses Superman and Wonder Woman use the lasso of truth, and Superman just pulls on it and reconnects everything.
Nice.
It was pretty funny, and then we cut out and it's like Batman and Superman sitting at the diner playing, and Batman's like, "You ruined everything." That was fun.
Yeah, those are historically fantastic. I am going to go back and watch that just because they're good. And I don't even mean deliberately. I just mean that at some point I'm going to be sitting around at a computer and that's going to show up and I'm going to watch it. I may not even know when it's going to happen, but it will.
It will. Batman Returns is 25 years old. Isn't that sickening?
And we're young for that to be sickening, for God's sake.
Uh-huh. Yeah. The Hollywood Reporter did a big cast interview with everyone from Batman Returns, and there were a few interesting nuggets. I didn't get deep into it, but because I didn't think it was that interesting. But some of my favorite bits, the Penguins apparently, like the literal penguins, were apparently pretty aggressive, and they had their own dressing room.
I want that movie by itself, please.
Tim Burton talked about how he had never really heard, working on Batman, that he had never heard the word franchise until Batman Returns. And it was when McDonald's came to them and was like, "So what's the black stuff coming out of Penguin's mouth?"
Oh, God.
And then he was like, "Then I heard that word a lot." Michelle Pfeiffer was really excited to play Catwoman. She almost didn't get to play Catwoman. Annette Bening was cast, and then she got pregnant, so Michelle Pfeiffer got to do it. Yeah. But apparently the suit was super uncomfortable, and I would believe it.
Yeah, no doubt.
My favorite bit, though, was Michael Keaton spoke about how in the original script there were all of these big speeches that Batman had to give, and Keaton just kept going through and going, "Nope, cut that, cut that, cut that." And the screenwriter was like, I was like, "Why is he cutting all of his dialogue?" And then when he watched the movie, he was like, "Oh, yep, nope, he was right. The costume does the work for him. He doesn't have to talk at all."
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, and the bit where
Keaton giving a little writer's workshop for the poor guy.
Oh, yeah. And apparently the bit where the clown had the bomb, and then he looks down and Batman's put the bomb on the clown and kicks him down into the hole. That wasn't in the actual script. That was just something they did because they thought it was fun.
Who didn't like killing a clown?
Mm-hmm. Originally in the initial draft, Batman didn't kill anyone.
Yeah. I'm sure there were a lot of jokes in the editing room about, "Fuck you, Pennywise."
Maybe.
You ruined my childhood.
So, speaking of Armie Hammer, though, he apparently has pretty fond memories of his bat suit from Justice League Mortal. He spoke about the bat suit a bit. He said it was a full functioning bat suit that they put together. There were pistons and gears and springs. In the story, Batman had been injured. It was amazing. They asked if he got to hang on to anything from it, and he said, "No. I would love to have a picture. I hear there's something floating around out there." I would like to see more pictures and stuff from Justice League Mortal. I mean, as much as you don't like George Miller, and as much as I'm, whatever, just kind of apathetic towards him,
sure,
I would like to see more about what that movie was going to be. Alrighty.
It could be as fun as like the what was it, the Return of Superman Lives or whatever. What was that documentary?
Oh, the whatever it was, the death and the
death and Return of Superman is a different thing with Landis.
It is, yeah, Max Landis, yeah. I don't know what it's called. I don't remember
that weird thing about Nicolas Cage's almost Superman.
I think it was called The Death of Superman Lives.
That sounds right. Right.
It's a good yarn.
It actually was pretty good documentary. I think we have an episode about that.
Mm-hmm. I thought we did.
I don't know. We're somewhere a few hundred deep at this point. It's hard to keep track.
We have listener feedback. We don't have any. Of the things of the voicemails. The things. Oh. What the hell's wrong with me?
Standard issue problems with our brains. I mean, I expect nothing more or less from us.
I somewhat feel like I'm more on point when we have more to do.
Yeah, we just kind of ramble when there's less news.
Mm-hmm.
For better or worse.
Anyway, if you do want to leave us a voicemail, it's 205-259-6331. It'll be in the show notes as well. And but we do have some listener feedback, and we're going to have to defend ourselves a couple of times, I think.
Aww.
iTunes, the Brian of Steel wrote us a podcast review, and he says, "Listen to this podcast."
So far, so good.
Absolutely. The Great Suicide Squad cast recommended this podcast, and I'm glad they did, because this show is awesome.
Waiting for the other foot to drop here.
Yeah. Even though they hate the masterpiece that is Man of Steel, no one is perfect, I guess.
All right.
Yeah.
Two things are wrong.
I don't hate Man of Steel.
Yeah, one, nobody's perfect, I guess, is that's just true. We don't, I appreciate it, but we don't hate that film. I watch it occasionally. Every time.
Jason likes it more than I do.
I have wept at that film before. I wept in the theater watching it.
I did too. I have issues
that little
with
speech about like they'll try to follow, they'll stumble, all that stuff. I freaking cried.
I did
still choke up when I go back and watch that part. I'm one of the few people that actually, and I think I'm the minority here. And feel free to back me up if anyone's got my back on this one. But I freely defend the Pa Kent walking into the tornado thing.
I don't, but yeah.
It's one of the points of contention we've had. But I have tried to justify that on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
No, I like the film. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think here's the thing. I don't know if he went back and listened to the Man of Steel review.
That may be,
or what happened.
I don't know. When we did a lot of our reviews, we were pretty critical. So
yeah,
I understand where that thought may have come from.
Yeah, but even in those, like I said repeatedly, I don't hate the movie. I like the movie. I just like it less than I felt like I should have.
Well, even that,
and had certain issues.
Even for us, liking something amounts to sometimes us being really bitchy about it, and then still kind of liking it ourselves, but still being willing to, rip it apart if we see the need.
Yeah, and I think the premise of our Man of Steel review was you were going to try to defend it, and it always just came down to headcanoning. But but even I said that I liked the movie.
That was we went at it from opposite sides. I thought I did a pretty decent job defending it, but
see, I'm different though. Like a lot of people are like, it was too dark and blah blah, and I'm like, I think I wanted it to even be darker, because I was like, no, they should have had people blowing their brains out in a church. Because there were aliens.
Should have been vats of poison Kool-Aid.
There should have been rioting in the streets. And, I still kind of feel that way a little bit. Like, for all Pa Kent said, like, you have no idea what they're going to do when they find out. They didn't really do a whole lot. Now, that got followed up in BVS, and we did that review before BVS. But I feel like a lot of that got followed up in BVS, and I felt like they did a good job with it. BVS made me like Man of Steel more.
We were pretty happy that BVS was going to follow up that thread, and
absolutely,
I can't remember exactly. I know the sentiment was there. I think we mentioned that we hoped they followed that up when we did our little post autopsy, our little post-mortem.
But no, and I've subsequently said on the show, And look, we have over 400 episodes. I don't blame you for not having listened to every episode. But
no.
I have said numerous times, though, that I've watched Man of Steel several times, even since our review, and have, not several, but 3 or 4 times, and have liked it more every time I've watched it. I still have a few, quibbles, but,
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of stuff that could have been done better continuity-wise, but...
And yeah, I'm just not going to get over the color issue. I want color.
Yeah, I was always willing to hang back and not hate on the color part a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it never bothered me as much as it did you. But, I mean, it's fun to joke about, but I never really cared as much. And there were a few threads in the film that probably could have been a little tighter sewn. But, I like the thing. I mean, I'm just a guess. I've probably watched it 7 or 8 times.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of Goyer's dialogue. I'm not a fan of his scripting. I don't like his plot motivations too much. I always just feel like someone else could do the good parts that he did, but take the shitty parts and make them good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about Man of Steel a lot. Anyone who's listened for a long time knows this. But the one thing that I outright will not defend is that stupid busboy scene. I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah. That was...
Makes no sense.
It elicited...
Either within or without the context of the film. Makes no sense.
It elicited a chuckle from me in the theater, and then 2 minutes later I was like, but wait. But no, I wouldn't call the film a masterpiece, but I certainly don't hate it.
No.
Moving on. Thank you, by the way, for the recommendation anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Omar El Malaya says, hey guys, this is on Facebook, always a fan. Have you heard that a few Arab countries banned the Wonder Woman film because the lead Gal Gadot is Israeli? Well, specifically, she was in the Israeli army, is why they did it. I wouldn't want you guys to get political. I know you hate that. We do.
Yeah.
Was just wondering if you did hear about it. If you don't know or don't recognize, I'm the one who's doing the shirt designs after the Netflix shows. The guys over at MCU mention them from time to time. I did not notice that until you said that. We had a long conversation on Facebook. He sent us some links to those shirts. They look really badass, really cool. He says, big fan of you guys, peace and love. He sent us a link to these shirts. I'll put it in the to the designs. I'll put them in the show notes. But we did see that, and I just skipped it because I decided, why?
Yeah,
But I think it was just Lebanon, wasn't it?
I have no idea. I skipped over it entirely.
Was just Lebanon.
It's one of those things where the politics on that are so fragile. I don't even look into it sometimes.
Yeah.
I just really don't. I'm not qualified to judge a damn thing on any of that. The only thing I could substantially say is I'm just sorry anyone's not seeing this film.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. They're like, well, she was in the Israeli army. I'm like, no, she's an Amazon.
She clearly trained in Themyscira, not Israeli.
I don't know what you're talking about with this quote unquote real world.
Yeah.
But anyway, Justin Miramon left us not a voicemail, an email. And here's what he says. He says, and we might actually have to interrupt him because this is pretty long. Take this piecemeal. He says, so okay, here's my thoughts on Dark Knight Rises. Not that you guys asked and or care. We absolutely care, and we did ask in the Dark Knight Rises review.
Sure.
Prior to a few weeks ago, I had not seen Dark Knight Rises since it was in theaters, and I always recalled enjoying it. Then I subscribed to your podcast and saw that you guys had absolutely did it in a review. And I was taken aback at how much you could hate this movie. I thought to myself, okay, well, at the time I saw it, I was a very casual Batman fan who had not read any of the graphic novels, so I guess I was just naive. So I decided to purchase the bundle on Vudu and rewatch the third one. I think I remember that one of your big gripes was that Batman would never take a 10-year hiatus. If so, that's not a very strong criticism because Nolan is basically making Dark Knight Returns Part 1 here, where Batman had done just that, quit for 10 years. Moreover, if you enjoyed that graphic novel, then I don't see how you could hate this film, which pulls so heavily from it. Let's back up real quick. In Dark Knight Rises, Batman took 10 years off because someone died. A girl who was not even dating him. She was with Harvey Dent. And this is after
engaged, by the way.
Yes.
Engaged
to Harvey Dent.
Let me back up
this
one
is
step
after
further and
Bruce tries to, like, cock block this dude and tries to commit adultery.
Yeah, that's about the point. But our problems stemmed from the fact that relationship does not justify the action. Not so much that in Dark Knight Returns, that is an entirely different. The calls for his absence there is warranted.
Plus, in Dark Knight Returns, he'd been Batman for like 20, 25 years, presumably. Whereas in Dark Knight Rises,
what is it? 2-ish, 1-ish, 2-ish. It was a very small amount of time he's been Batman.
Yeah. Dark Knight Rises, he was Batman for a year and a half. He spent more time being a thief and training with Ra's al Ghul and climbing the freaking mountain to find the lotus flower than he actually did ever being Batman.
Yeah. Well, something I did like about Batman Begins is it spent so much time on his training. I can dig that, but I can't forgive the idea that like a couple films later he's just chilling, practicing archery in his one of his many parlors.
Now, the guy actually also mentions here that the loss of a loved one also sent him into quitting in Dark Knight Returns. I don't believe that's the case. It was the government shut down superheroes, and when Batman and Ollie tried to stand against Superman freaking took Ollie's arm, and Batman was like, "Well, shit, okay." I mean, what are you gonna do?
I mean, Batman has always been. He's a compatriot of Superman in that version of the story, at least. But they've never completely agreed.
Yeah, no.
They're allies when the time comes, and then they argue when it doesn't. But there's a point where in that book, Superman commits completely to not just truth and justice, but the American way. That's the part that Frank Miller focused on. Is he commits to being
even more so than the American way to Ronald Reagan?
Yeah, to his portrayal of Ronald Reagan at the time. But like he commits to being a government stooge, and that's how he's portrayed in that book. Is he follows the orders? That's what he does. He is kind of a Boy Scout tried and true, like at the nth level, Boy Scout. And at some point, Batman just has to back out and go, well, you know what? This isn't a fight I can win. No. It's me versus the entire government and a demigod. I guess I'm gonna have to back. It's entirely different from I kissed this girl once, and she died, and she wasn't even together, and she wasn't even like my girlfriend.
Yeah. Did you really grow up with her, Bruce? Because like you guys left like
it was
each other when she left when you were like 10.
Even there, like they spent a couple years together when they were like 8 to 10. I don't even remember the names of the people I was friends with when I was 8 to 10.
I barely do.
I remember some vague faces.
But it was I remember it being like this. Hey, I remember that guy's name and this face kind of, but I don't remember any real thing about that person.
Actually, let me put it this way:
that made me friends with him.
0 of the people at my bachelor party we're part of my friends group at 8 to 10.
That's right.
0.
But I mean, look, I feel like first of all, just throwing this out there with the 10-year thing. I mean, I feel like Batman had way more reason to quit in Dark Knight Returns than he did in Dark Knight Rises, and in Dark Knight Rises, he actually did quit at the end. He was just like, well, dispose of the bomb. Gotta go to Italy.
Yeah, they leave you with the idea that like he quit because of that, and then he finds some other girlfriend and he quits again. It ends up being weirdly, weirdly romantic in a way that we end up not. Sorry again if anyone disagrees, but we did not respect that about this version of Batman.
Yeah.
Whereas in Dark Knight Returns, he doesn't so much quit as he admits defeat, and it kills him for decades. Yeah. Like it eats at him. Until he finally puts the uniform back on and goes out there.
And also, in Dark Knight Rises, I kind of feel like when you look at Dark Knight Rises and then you start to look back at the other films, he stopped really being, like, as much as I say he stopped being Bruce Wayne the moment his parents died. When I look at that trilogy, I go, oh my gosh, he stopped being Batman the moment Rachel said she couldn't be with someone who was Batman. Because all through the Dark Knight,
he's like the back half of that trilogy, he's trying to back away from the idea.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, okay, so I've winnowed it down to organized crime. Could you still be with me now? Could you? I mean, she's like, well, I'm with Harvey. And he's like, well, that's bullshit, because you said the thing.
And also in that trilogy, in the normal version that we're familiar with, he stops being Bruce Wayne, that night he makes the promise at his bedside, right?
Yeah.
In the Nolan trilogy, it's really, to me, it's when he walks away from the courthouse with that gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That he has to kind of admit that he's going to have to do something different.
Yeah. It's just, my biggest problem is an essential inability by Nolan and his crew, or an unwillingness to understand the essence of the character. They treated Batman as an illness, not as the underlying personality of the character. Yeah.
I mean, we've always preferred the Kevin Conroy version of Batman.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. He continues, let's look at some of the parallels between Dark Knight Rises and Dark Knight Returns. The pretense, Batman having lost someone close to him, has taken a 10-year hiatus. We've addressed that. That's not the case. Suddenly he decides to spring back into action, with his reappearance happening in front of a squad car with 2 cops, one rookie and a senior cop, watching in awe as he drops in on criminals. I did say I liked that scene in Dark Knight Rises, to be fair. They even had that same line from part 1. You're right. You're about to see something special, kid. Yep. Cool. Agreed. Gotham City taken over by an army who follows one big, badass, and physically intimidating leader. Well, Gotham City wasn't so much taken over by the mutants in Dark Knight Rises. They were there, and they were everywhere, but they weren't they hadn't taken over the actual infrastructure of the government or anything.
No, this wasn't like Intergang taking over or something. This was just kind of a plague.
Yeah. The antagonist, Bane, is so obviously the mutant leader here. The mask is the teeth. He hangs out with his shirt off. He defeats Batman easily in their first meeting, only to have Bats come back and wipe the floor with him later. I'm positive Bane has those nips pierced under that fur coat thing he wears. I don't remember the mutant leader having pierced nipples, but
no,
I don't
he had
care.
Spiky nipples.
Yeah, he had spiky nipples. And they may have been piercings, come to think of it, but who knows?
Yeah, I suppose
they were colored the same,
studs or whatever they call them. But
Bane, I don't. If you're going to call him Bane, I want him to be Bane. I don't want him to be like a vague allusion to the mutant leader.
Yeah,
I don't care that the mask is teeth. But that's not even my problem. My problem, one of my big problems with the movie is, in short form, because we did do an entire show about this.
Yeah, we've got like 3 hours. I thought we were pretty clear.
I thought we were pretty clear on that. There were tons of plot holes. We talked about them in depth. A lot of strange incongruities. Just people not making decisions they would like. No one's gonna, say, "Hey, Commissioner Sepsis over here. Let's do what he says and send everybody in the police force down into the tunnels."
Yeah,
and then get stuck there. That's not gonna happen.
Right.
There's a ton of stuff. There's no way, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is going to be like, oh, he's Batman because he looked at me a funny way in the orphanage. Or, hey, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's not going to be like, hey, I know exactly where, they actively said in the movie when Gordon goes down that little waterfall in the sewer, they're like, he could go anywhere. Joseph Gordon-Levitt finds him, just runs up. They never even show how he finds him. He just runs up randomly and finds Gordon.
Yeah.
Gordon should have died.
A city of,
we should have never seen Gordon
several
again.
Million people, and I don't know how many feet of sewer system he just finds him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we've gone into the...
All right. He says JGL is kind of Carrie Kelly here, complete with the in shot of him underground taking up the mantle of the Batman. Not really. Yes, he goes into basically Bruce leaves it to someone who he hasn't even trained. He pretty much he's not really Carrie Kelly.
Yeah.
He's just not.
No, Carrie Kelly hunts it down in like a Tim Drake-ish kind of way. Hunts down that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Demands
they could have said his name was Dick Grayson or Tim Drake or any of the actual Robin names, but they said his name was Robin. That feels like Nolan just said, I've never read a book. Is his name really Robin? Who cares? Let's just do this.
It felt like
I didn't care either way.
It was kind of an abortion of a shout out, to be honest.
Yeah. The ending.
Also with the Bane mutant thing, one of my major problems with that idea is just Bane has so much canon to him and so many good stories.
Bane is a very good character.
He's a great character when he's done correctly. Don't look at any of the films that have ever been done before you judge me on that. Read some actual books. But he he has so much potential. He's been done so well, written so well in the past. And to take a character that is essentially not the main character from one graphic novel and allude to that doesn't make a lot of sense. Just strategically, it doesn't.
And not to mention the fact that, and I mentioned this elsewhere in the in our crossover with the Suicide Squad cast when we reviewed Batman and Robin, they essentially reduced Bane to the role he had in Batman and Robin, where he's just like the lackey of a lady.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot more lines, but
you couldn't understand him.
Yeah, it was a lot of.
You could kind of understand him.
I understood what he's saying. Mostly. I mean, really, like 75%. Honestly, 25% of what he said, I had to go back and look up later. I did, to be fair. I didn't just ignore it. But it is just, like, at this point, it's a fun thing to do, like, when you're fucking around with your friends. Do the whole, like, covered voice thing. It's just become comic relief for, like, screwing around with your buddies. And the earlier version was just, I mean, I'm going to pull some dialogue from that film. Sound like a direct quote?
Yeah. Now look, and also JGL or Joseph Gordon-Levitt being Carrie Kelly here, that's absolutely false. Carrie Kelly became a support system for Bruce in Dark Knight Returns. Like,
literally.
She's hauling his ass back to the Batcave because he's too screwed up to actually function.
I mean, he would have died on the battlefield, so to speak.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt barely had much to say to Batman, and it's just a completely different thing.
Yeah,
it really is.
His JGL's version of this character just, I don't know, supernaturally knows where things are and has some weird conversation about orphan eyes, and then suddenly he's Robin.
Yeah. All right. So he continues. The ending. And Rises,
by the way,
Bruce Wayne.
I'm really sorry, dude. I hate to feel so antagonistic. I mean, we appreciate you writing in. That's the point is to have a dialogue. I hate that we're like disagreeing with everything you say, man.
I know.
Sorry.
I know. Well, he wanted to know why we hated it so much.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry. I apologize. We're just answering. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So he says the ending. In Rises, Bruce Wayne rides off into the sunset with Selina. In Returns Part 2, he presumably retires from being Batman to train a new league of crime fighters. I don't think we are supposed to believe that Old Man Wayne was going to return to Batman. Otherwise, what's the point of faking his death? He was not going to, well, the point of that was he is Batman. That's his personality, even if he's not wearing the mask. The whole point was that he converted the mutants into the sons of Batman, essentially, who took up they took up the mantle and said that, but and then he said, "Hey, you guys aren't doing it right. Let's do it this way." And they followed him because why the hell wouldn't
on horseback? Damn it.
And the sons of Batman, on horseback.
Right.
So the sons of Batman, Carrie Kelly and Ollie Queen, are absolutely, because they have to fake their own death, and of course. That's part of the brilliance of Superman winking, giving Carrie Kelly the wink. He knows Bruce is still alive.
Oh yeah, there's the wonderful moment where
he has to be dead.
That heartbeat. He knows.
Absolutely. Officially, he has to be dead. That's the whole point. But he's absolutely going to still be Batman, as we and even as we see in Dark Knight Strikes Again. I mean, whether you want to consider that canon or not, a lot of people are like, no, nothing after Dark Knight Return. Whatever, dude. Dark Knight Strikes Again, not as good, but it had its points. And clearly he was still Batman, though not, he was much more stealth about it. But no, that is a far cry from going and somehow finding out what eatery Alfred was talking about. That's another big plot hole.
Yeah, there's about 15 different ways to mock that scene as far as
and far as we're talking about plot holes, you want to know another one? How did Bruce get from that desert hole to Gotham?
Travel doesn't exist in that film.
If there was no way to come in or out of Gotham, which had been established,
like Bruce Wayne can traverse deserts to Metropoli and in bare feet if he has to, and Batman can outrun nuclear bombs. I don't fucking know, man. It doesn't make any sense. It's one of the many problems we had. But
anyway,
the major problem though is that like the Dark Knight Rises version of Batman retires into some. I'm going to be judgmental with this version of it, but into some sort of selfish happiness. Don't get me wrong. It's the same reason, like, in Mask of the Phantasm, when he's begging for his parents' forgiveness at their gravesite and says, "I didn't know I'd be happy." Like, we're all weeping for him. Literally, I mean, me and you both cried watching that scene, thinking, "Oh my God, that's so tragic."
I've cried recalling that scene on the show.
Describing it to somebody.
Yeah.
But like, on one hand, we want that for Bruce Wayne, but we don't respect it out of Batman. So when Batman retires to be with a girl that he hasn't known for very long, much like the one that he retired for 10 years for, and hit some Italian cafe, we don't really give a shit. Doesn't resonate at all.
And sometimes it's like, okay, in the comics right now, Batman just proposed to Catwoman.
Yeah.
If she says yes, couldn't be happier.
I mean, I don't know how they're going to make it work, but I'm happy about this story.
Hey, there's canonical precedents for it. And,
absolutely.
You know, the original comics, Huntress was the daughter of Batman and Catwoman.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That weird Kane period with the Comics Code Authority that we won't speak of.
Anyway, he continues, those are just a few parallels. And as I have found out via Google, after watching the movie again, there are a few websites that list a bunch more. I'm sure I saw them in the movie. Anyway, I also found Catwoman to be perfect here. I don't know if you guys had a problem with her, but I gotta tell you, I don't think we will ever get a better Catwoman than that. Have you seen Gotham? From the look to her attitude, Hathaway did the character justice. She did a fine job. She was fine.
I got nothing against her in particular.
Nothing against her.
Yeah, I do like Anne Hathaway.
So my question is, why do you guys hate this so much? Magic knee brace. It's a mix of Dark Knight Returns.
Not only a magic knee brace, you bring in Thomas Lennon to introduce me to the magic. I'm already looking at him going, "Oh, this is going to be goofy." Yeah. And then you give me a magical medical device.
And it was goofy. How about a punch to the back fixing a broken back? How about that? Yeah. There's so many reasons to not like this movie, honestly.
I'm sorry, and man, feel free to continue the conversation with us.
Absolutely.
I really hate that we're
I don't hate this dude at all.
So on the other side of this issue, I'm appreciating I'm even listening to it, but yeah. I just I've got nothing. I've got nothing to offer. Like, I don't have a... Yeah. I don't... No. I've got nothing. There's no olive branch for me in this film as far as like, it may have made sense. I got nothing.
Ideally, he would have heard... Justin, you would have heard us just talk about how, like, my opinion of Man of Steel got better over time. My opinion of Dark Knight Rises has gotten worse over time.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, stayed the same. I've just noticed more plot holes.
I just can't do it.
He says it is a mix of Dark Knight Returns and Nightfall translated to the big screen. Very well acted by everyone involved. I'm not gonna argue against the acting. Our acting was fine. I don't think you can use the Batman would never quit argument either. I mean, you have to have a damn good reason. I don't think that Rachel was a damn good reason.
No, I mean,
unless you just don't like the graphic novel either.
Canonically, he has quit from time to time. It happens.
Yeah, sure.
But go back to Jason Todd. He was on the street in like a week.
Yeah. Unless you just don't like the graphic novel either, then that's fine. I get that. No, love that graphic novel. It's a fine graphic novel.
It's fantastic. I mean, Nightfall is a great story, too. It's nothing against that.
Several generations, yeah.
And, great shout out to the broken back and everything. It's just not... He didn't get that back by training with some ropes.
I might get some flack for this, but Dark Knight Returns is way better than Nightfall. Nightfall was just, it was fine, and it's what got me really into reading comics, like seriously into reading comics, because I was just like, what's gonna happen?
That serialization.
But looking back on it, it was just like the epitome of hokey 90s bullshit stunts.
I mean, that's fine. It was a cool story. It just,
and part of me goes like, well, it made you fall in love with him
for saying that it's not as good as Dark Knight Returns. I mean, shit. Dark Knight Returns is like top 5 on anybody's list.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what, Dark Knight Returns, Kingdom Come, and who the hell cares after that? I mean...
It really... you go for anybody's top 5 DC, and it's going to be like, all right, so I don't know where Dark Knight Returns is, but it's in the top 5 somewhere. Uh-huh. And then they start playing around.
And now we have to include Watchmen in that because of Rebirth. And,
right.
That's not fair. That's like Citizen Kane.
I still throw All-Star Superman up there with any of it. And Red Sun.
Oh, All-Star Superman is so good. Oh, Red Sun is so good, too.
I think we just did our top 5, right?
Moving on.
It was an accident, but it happened. Ask us tomorrow. It may be slightly different.
So Justin continues, when I rewatched this movie post-listening to our review, I was ready to hate it. You're on the right track, Justin. But but I actually liked it even more, having then read some comics and graphic novels. I'm glad this movie exists, and I feel like we Batman fans should not take for granted a solid Batman movie, because we never know when the studio will revert back to the parodies of the 90s. Thanks for reading if you did. I know it's long. Respond if you'd like, or maybe respond to this on the show. I am sure that I will be listening.
All right, for better or worse, we did respond on the show.
We did respond on the show. I'm absolutely on board your thought that,
it might revert.
Well, it might revert, or not even to what it was in the 90s. But, everyone, that's been one of my big concerns, though, with everyone's like, oh, the tone is so dark and gritty. That's exactly what we've wanted for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Why are you going to be bitches about it now?
Burton hinted at it, but he didn't get to do it. And Schumacher apparently wanted to try it, but didn't get to do it. Now we're finally getting to try.
No. Burton did it, but did like this weird, like macabre camp version of it. Well, I mean, the first one was pretty damn good.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It's not nearly as gritty as what we're dealing with today. I mean, we weren't there yet.
And
there was some water testing happening, but
and if you were in the camp that was going like, oh man, it was too grim. It was all grim dark. That's the term they like to use now, grim dark.
Oh, I haven't heard that one yet. Okay.
Batman v Superman is.
Is there a grim light?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or a happy dark?
You've heard grim dark because I've mentioned it on the show, and you were like, oh, I haven't heard that one before.
Oh, okay. So I'm relearning this term that I apparently keep forgetting.
It's a term that hipster article writers like to use to diminish a movie.
I do, as a matter of course, try to forget those terms, so it may just be my brain doing what I ask it to do.
But if you're one of those that's going like, oh, it was too Batman v Superman is grim, dark, and blah blah. I put on Batman v Superman last night as I was prepping for this show, and I lost about an hour of work because I couldn't stop watching it. It is that good. I'm sorry. Yes, it was the Ultimate Edition. No, I don't accept any other edition.
Once you've seen it, you cannot go back.
But I don't give a shit. I love that. I love it. It's great. It's got some issues. I've got some quibbles with it. No reason to be angry with me over it. I dig it, y'all. Anyway, Justin, thank you for writing to us and talking to us about all this. I don't really care how much it has in common with Dark Knight Returns. I don't agree with you on a lot of that, but I feel like they had homages.
Yeah, definite homages.
But there were a lot of homages, but I feel like they didn't really understand what was good about it, and I don't feel like they understood the character, because if you watch the the behind the scenes and stuff, they even talk about how like they felt like Batman, the persona of Batman, was a crutch to Bruce Wayne, and how they wanted to like move Bruce by the end of the trilogy. They wanted to move Bruce Wayne beyond the notion of Batman to be able to live a life. And looking at that and like looking back at the trilogy, it's evident all the way through, and it kind of just puts a stank on the trilogy for me, because for me, like, I feel like Batman is always supposed to be Batman. He always wants to do what's right. He always wants to use the tools at his disposal to make sure that nothing like that happens to a kid again.
Oh yeah, that's the part we're always attached to.
Whether you want to take it in the Adam West direction, where he's just like, I'm a pretty bright guy, and one day I'm gonna, become a mayor or something, maybe. Or if you want, or more of a golden or silver age type of situation, right. Or if you want to go into the, I'm gonna be a creepy old man who lives in a body brace of my own devising and controls robots and or a teenager in a Batman suit.
Both of those worked out okay.
But like one of my favorite things is like, I feel like when you're talking about like Batman thinking about having a life, love and romance, etc., you look at Mask of the Phantasm and you go like, I wasn't counting on being happy. Mm-hmm. That's a devastating the tough part, man. That's a sweet spot where you can do that. And then you push it forward and you look at that episode of Batman Beyond where he's just lonely and sitting in the cave and looking at all the pictures of the women he loved over the years and how he ruined, thinking about how he ruined all of those relationships.
Every single chance he had.
because of Batman.
Yeah. Well,
that's the kind of shit that I can really dig into.
But that's
because
a nice
he
thing
can't
where
not be Batman.
You can humanize him, and then it reinforces the choice he made.
Yeah. And look, I'm gonna begrudgingly err on the side of Grant Morrison here and be like, every version of Batman is valid. Okay, fine. That means Nolan's Batman too.
That's fine.
Maybe there's a version of Batman out there who was just Bruce Wayne who pretended to be a Batman for half a minute.
Yeah, we're just gonna retell the series. I'm gonna propose Bruce Wayne Begins,
The
Grey Knight, and Bruce Wayne Rises.
The Adulterous Knight.
Yeah. The Hound Dog Knight.
Yeah. Like I said, we go on about this much more in the review. If you guys haven't listened to it and just want to know more about what our issues are with the film, I'm sure we're pretty repetitive.
We've redone half that podcast at this point.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, about a fourth. Moving on.
It went on. It went on way longer than we thought it would.
We love you, Justin. Thank you for listening, and thank you for writing us that letter. And
please continue listening.
Thank you for listening.
I apologize one more time. Sorry, man.
And I just want to say one more time, sepsis.
Yeah.
Sepsis. Rick's story over on Twitter says, the Witter Woman. The Witter Woman's first appearance was hilarious. The Witter Woman is a person, we don't know who it is, but they have left 2 voicemails so far. Rick's story says, first appearance was hilarious, second was just sad. I was kind of hoping it was a wrong number. I said on Twitter, yeah, Witter Woman's got to step up her game. So that's a challenge out there to you.
That's
Witter Woman.
That's on you now. We're just passing the message along.
Because I'll be honest, the second Witter Woman message was kind of just bringing up the same stuff that was brought up in the first one. It was a little bit like a bad sequel. You got to come up with new material, Witter Woman.
Well, that's a gauntlet. The gauntlet has been thrown.
The gauntlet has been thrown. It is on the floor.
We don't know who the hell you are, so
I've accidentally lost a toe now.
Yeah. There's at least a whelp.
I'm not going to take up Witter Woman. I'm not going to start doing that bit.
No, hell no.
Just so we can have a stupid character on the show.
No, whoever this person is, it's their job to keep a stupid character on our show, not ours.
That's right. They started this.
Yeah.
You were Todd Barry, circa Late Night with David Letterman.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're proud of yourself. That's right. I pulled that out. All right.
Look up your comedian history. It's all true, baby.
Okay. So yeah. Give me just a second. I am an idiot. I believe that's the one. Alright, so last week on the show, I was talking about the Josh Gad thing. About how someone sent me the Josh Gad with Geoff Johns and John Berg holding the Penguin comic. And I said I didn't remember who it was. It was Eli Hernandez on Twitter.
Okay.
So, because he was like, "Oh, Dave." You can tell by the way he said, "Oh, Dave." Like, he's a listener.
Yeah.
"Oh, Dave." Like in this way, I was like, "Yeah, I know you're not going to remember." It was me who sent you that pic of Josh Gad as the Penguin.
Oh.
So I'm sorry, buddy. I'm real bad about it.
I want to point this out to anyone who's been with us this long. We did this ourselves. We don't have production assistants that come and correct us on shit. We have to actually remember things. And that goes poorly.
That's right. All right. Yeah, so I'm sorry, Eli Hernandez. I don't even know what to say. You know how bad it is? I remembered your name was Eli, and I realized I had not written your name down in the notes. I copied and pasted your message. So, yeah, I had to look you up on Twitter real quick and be like, "Oh yes, Hernandez, that was right."
Right.
I knew it, but I wasn't 100% sure of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, my fault. Moving on, that's all we have. Moving on to nothing. That's all we have. We'll have
Moving on to the next episode.
Yeah. We'll have a DC TV news episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. We are DC On Screen. You can find every episode at DCOnScreen.com. We will read your incredibly long email, and we do appreciate
Unfortunately,
it.
we'll respond to it.
Unfortunately, we will respond to it. People are like, I don't want to write the email because I don't want to hear them respond to it. Like, that was the most boring response to a well thought out email that I've ever heard. What the hell is wrong with you guys? Well, it's just who we are.
I mean,
anyway.
I would only say that we can probably make it even more boring and longer.
We could.
That's probably us reining ourselves in. I haven't listened back.
But that would once again require effort.
Yeah, we're not into effort.
We just kind of hang out in that, like, I'm not even gonna keep on with that because I work really hard on this show every week. So no, girl. I can't do that to myself.
Can't follow me there. Okay. Well, I like your self-esteem. I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even self-esteem. Like, for the shitty product that you guys get, I work really hard on it. So. See, I was self-deprecating again.
Oh,
anyway,
and the cycle continues.
Come back. Come talk to us. There was a lot of fan feedback. It wasn't even feedback. It was just conversations on Twitter and Facebook that we didn't even talk about this episode because we've already had the conversation. Why? But we have a lot of fun talking to you guys, all of you. Well, not all of you. Some of you are dicks. I think that shows in the conversations we have. But it's an accepting thing.
It's a thing we all learn. You get out far enough into the world and you're going to find a series of dicks.
Yeah. I'm not naming names.
I don't even know the names.
I probably won't.
I'm just sure statistically there's a series of dicks.
Yeah. Sometimes there's like, an occasional person on Twitter or whatever that's just like, decides to message me and be like, "You're an idiot." I'm like, "Thank you." I don't know.
Yeah, that's inevitable.
But anyway.
You could sit there with a blank account, never say a word, and someone eventually on Twitter is going to go like, "You're an idiot." Like, I have literally never posited a single thought on this forum. Thank you so much, though, for your input.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, we are DC On Screen. You can find us DC On Screen on Twitter, Facebook. It's one word on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. DCOnScreen@gmail.com. Again, one word. To leave us whatever size email you would like to send us. And, Christopher White has brought it up a few times. Apparently I never mentioned that he got me a really sweet Batman, the animated series, PVC figure. Because I've promised that I would mention it. Because, months ago, when I talked about all the cool crap I got for Christmas, I didn't mention that. And he had sent that to me. And apparently, I thought I had mentioned it, but he said I didn't.
Aww.
So now I have mentioned it, and Christopher White is one of these listeners. He's just the dream listener. He sends us things to put on the show. He sends us things to put on our shelves.
Mm-hmm. Great,
and really great guy. We've become friends with him over the last couple of years, and we didn't mention it, but we have actually been doing this for over 2 years now. Isn't that crazy?
Good Lord.
How time? But anyway,
I mean, bringing it up again, you want to just go like, "Merry Half Christmas."
Merry Half Christmas. And we'll be coming right back with DC TV news. Until then, keep some DC on your screen.